Mr. Mason. My name's Ethan. We got my co-host Ryan here.
How's it going? How's it going, sir?
What's going on, fellas? What's happening?
We're just chilling, man. We're just chilling. Really happy to have you on the podcast, man. I've been watching you for a little over a year now. I've always said that I wish I had you around when I had my car, my 392. But we really appreciate you coming on the podcast and just answering a few questions and having you on.
Yeah, man. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yes, sir. No problem. Ryan, you want to go and get it started real quick? We just had a few questions, man. Essentially, I know you've covered it a lot. I know, and then my friend Ryan here has always asked the question too. Why doesn't Mopar have such a strong aftermarket? And what part, in your opinion, would you like to see most, be made or R&D'd for the 392 or just these cars in general?
Well, first and foremost, Mopar's got to realize really who's buttering their bread here. The big purchase right now is the Scat Pack. It's not the 5.7 and it's not the Hellcat. The 392 is the car that really did the most to put Mopar on the map, especially paving the way for cars like the Hellcat. And they really do need to move away from the 5.7 with their Scat packages and start looking at the 392 as a platform to shine. It's great and it's sexy to have the 700 plus horsepower, 800 horsepower cars, but the reality is that the cars that are out there really setting the standard for Mopar are the cars that are being powered by that 392. Now, I get it. I understand. There are limitations to that power plant, not because of the architecture of the engine itself, but just the platform, that LX platform. And I'm not talking about kind of heavy. You got to remember that, a fully dressed 392 Charger is going to tip the scale somewhere around 4,400 pounds. It's just this side, or actually about the same weight as a Hellcat, which has got another 100 whatever odd pounds hanging off the front of the thing. So what they need to do is they need to start taking a look at either weight reduction, gearing, something that is going to allow that engine to breathe as well, and bring that engine up to and bring that platform up to the standard that, well, let's face it, that the latest Coyote has set. Now, let's be real. There for a while, Mustang was the only game, and they didn't have to compete with anybody because there was no Challenger and there was no Camaro. And they still gave us the Coyote platform, which is still, in my head, a bit of a shock. They didn't have to. They could have spread that 3-valve out for another 3 or 4 years, but they gave us that Coyote, which was, a good yardstick for Mopar to go after when they first started releasing these 392 cars. And when they did, they were on top of the heap as far as naturally aspirated power goes. And they've had the opportunity to hold that spot for a while. They've lost ground in that respect. And now the 2018 and up Mustangs, especially with that A10 automatic, are pretty much in the route, just not necessarily but probably a lot of cars shot of their taillights going down the drag strip or on the street. So, in my opinion, what they need to do is for the next iteration, if you want to call it that, for the LX platform, they've got to pull some weight out of the thing. 200 or 300 pounds would be just fine. Keep the car big, though. Don't lose sight of where you're at. Don't lose sight of your buyers either. There's a reason why Mopar folks prefer the cars that they bought, and they didn't buy the Mustangs for the same reasons, that they like these larger cars. But get a little bit of weight out of them, throw a little bit of gearing their way, and in the process, could you please figure out a way to make an intake manifold that'll allow this engine with a set of cylinder heads that flows 340 CFM to breathe to a respectable RPM, say 7,000 RPM. Let the thing make about 530, 540 horsepower, and then you'll really be talking long-term stability with their position on the drag strip. Because face it, that's how they market these cars. When was the last time you saw anything Mopar derived on the TV that didn't involve loud noises and tire smoke? You won't find it. So if they're going to keep up with the marketing, they need to keep up with the performance if that image is going to hold straight.
I think you're exactly correct on that. That was going to be our follow-up question. And I believe I did ask you this on one of your live streams. I know you've been preaching about the intake manifold.
Yes.
I coming from me driving a 5.0, we have many different intake manifold options. Obviously the market is huge for the 5.0s, but that's one of my things. I guess I'm spoiled when it comes to the aftermarket. Like, why Mopar does not come up with some type of intake manifold, or some different type of intake manifold for, I guess, 8K revving. I mean, I'm sure whenever you switch those manifolds, I mean, it's going to change the way the car works, and then when you tune it, I'm sure you can get 8K revving capability. Am I correct on that?
Well, I wouldn't go so far as 8,000 RPM. You got to remember these are larger engines. They do have big, heavy valves. These heavy valves are huge. The inertia that it takes to get them moving is significant. But 7,500 RPM certainly would not be out of the range of possibility. The rod stroke ratio on these blocks will certainly manage that.
Right.
Possibly some changes to the internals, maybe a little bit stronger rod to deal with the higher RPM, maybe a little bit higher secondary NVH that you'll have to deal with at those types of RPMs. But the reality is that, look, guys are turning 392s up to 6,700 RPM with camshafts, stock internals with just spring upgrades, which really is the only limiting factor in terms of turning RPM with the engine. If you got enough spring pressure and a proper lifter and a push rod that'll manage the inertial stresses, and you can turn it to whatever RPM you want. Engineering it isn't the problem. The real problem is not only does Mopar not take any interest in the 392 just from a general performance standpoint, especially when it comes to those intake manifolds, the aftermarket's not either. And there's some reasoning behind that. And it's a real shame that, we're looking at a platform again that, it's already been proven that the stock 6.4 manifold, when it's massaged the right way, will offer a very strong broad power band. And it's that broad power band that is so appealing with the 392. I've said this a lot, but it bears repeating. The 392's blessing is its curse. The camshaft, the lobe profile is aggressive, and it's got a very wide lobe separation angle, all in an effort to make torque and have a broad power band with a 392 and a platform that is just obese in terms of weight. It's weird that these cars are 11-second capable from the factory at the weights that they are. But
Yeah, I agree.
So that's for me, realistically, it's going to take that intake manifold and gearing, and that's the other side of the leverage, and that would be through the rear end ratios. But there's not a gear that really scratches that itch. You've got the 370 out of the 6-speed Hellcats, but that's proven to be a little on the aggressive side, depending on the size of the rear tire that you're running. And, all things considered, you look at a car like the 1320, which had all the potential in the world on paper to be awesome if they would have followed the same platform, I guess, or the same mentality that they had with the Demon in terms of a more aggressive gear ratio. It's got all the gadgets and gizmos as far as electronics, but they left out the power, which the Demon got the bump initially, before the Red Eye over the Hellcat. So there was that improvement. The 1320 has the gear ratio. 1320 didn't get that. I guess where I'm going with this is the 1320 was their opportunity to give the NA 392 guys something that they could really get a hold of or wrap their minds around it and really moving forward and campaign moving forward, and they chose not to, and that's where we're at now.
So overall, would you say that, besides anything that Mopar has to do, besides the Hellcat, the Red Eye, and the Demon, they're just about neglecting, like the 392, the RT, the Scat Pack? Would you go as far as to say that?
About the NA guys, when you're as successful as you are with a forced induction crew, and realistically, I think it's almost to be expected in a way. They've already kind of done what they were going to do as far as marketing. The Demon did its job. It was a marketing coup when that thing was released. Anything after the Demon is going to play second fiddle. And so, for the hardcore enthusiast, for the weekend racer, that guy can't afford a Demon. And a lot of those guys are doing well to get their hands on upgrade in power, and there's no sight or there's no foreseeing that there will be anytime soon. So, it's going to take something big for Mopar to really get the grassroots guys excited about the NA cars. We're going to have to see, I hate to say it, but you're going to have to see a 426. You're going to have to see horsepower numbers get kicked up, or you're going to have to see weight come down. And let's be honest, FCA is going to have to put some weight behind it. Everybody knows what a Demon is. Nobody knows what a 1320 is. And that's just marketing for you.
Yeah, I thought that was hilarious when they announced the 1320. And you know what's funny? You mentioned the 426. Is that I've heard a lot of rumors in respect of like the 426 actually replacing the 392. I've heard a lot of stuff about them stopping production of the 392 after this coming model year. Is that true?
No, it's not true.
It's not true.
As a matter of fact, no, 392 is alive and well. That engine is not going anywhere. And look at it like this. I mean, there's no incentive for them to do anything with the 392 in the rest of the platforms that we're looking at. I mean, you look at the Durango, the Jeep, the Charger, the Challenger. They're all strong performing cars. And I think that Mopar is just going to ride that horse until its heart blows up and possibly save something for the revision, I guess, if you want to call it that, for the LX platform. I would say that that's probably what they're going to do, but so far as I can tell, there's no word, no hint, no nothing of a 426 making it into production, which is weird because you got to remember the 426 is nothing new. They've had the 426 for a while now in the drag pack cars, and it seems as though they've revised that, so to speak, with the Elephant short block. It would kind of stand to reason, at least at some point, that you would have at least some motivation to start looking at the NA guys. Again, consider that that's really what helps to drive the bulk of the sales are all the 5.7 and 392 cars. And just look at the sales figures. And I mean, that the market will dictate what they really need to be standing behind. And I get it. The sexy isn't the thing that makes the whining sound, but I got to tell you, the best avenue for Mopar to really ingrain themselves and to lock themselves in to a serious conversation when it comes to NA performance is going to be drop some weight or do something about the power plant moving forward to generate excitement. And it really doesn't have to do that much in terms of power improvement. It just needs to generate some level of excitement again for the brand because, and I'll tell you something else too, kind of to take this into a little bit different direction, but you got to remember, Mopar is really the company that brought all of this, drag racing, Americana, muscle car. They brought it back, or at least brought it more to the forefront with the weight of FCA behind their marketing. They need to stay on top of that because without that push, it's easy to start to forget about these cars because they are starting to get a little bit long in the tooth. I hate to say it, but we're 5 years into this body style, this interior, this transmission, this engine combination, with nothing being new and nothing changing. Whereas Mustang, in the same amount of time, has had a pretty significant revision. Camaro is also going through its minor facelift, but I think they're still licking their wounds and trying to figure out what they're going to do with that car moving forward. Reality is that Mopar has been leading the way in terms of marketing and in gathering up market share in the segment. So, you look at the sales figures, Mustang is always the highest by usually a factor of 1.5 to 2 over Challenger, and Challenger is actually outpacing Camaro. Look at last year's sales of 67,000 units. Of course, that spans all engine types, but you look at 67,000 units for Camaro and Challenger, and then those two numbers combined are about where a Mustang was. That's a huge chunk, and they've done a great job leading into this. They need to maintain that before they start to lose that market share just because they're starting to get a bit stale. And again, because they're not marketing it through motorsports, especially at the grassroots level, that's a bit of an issue, which, by the way, is something that pisses me because Dodge has a really funny habit of sponsoring everything that's on MTOD, that Motor Trend on Demand. If you ever watch that, everything is blah, 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 brought to you by Dodge. They are pandering to racer through that type of media, a media that is geared towards older motorheads and is a teaching media for guys that are still kind of coming into this. It's basically an echo chamber for car guys. They are driving the marketing through that media, but they are not doing it in real life. They're not doing it for the guys that have actually gone out and purchased the cars and save it for the 5.7 stuff. I get it. It's cute. It's adorable. And I talk great about the 5.7 cars constantly, but I'll tell you this right now. 5.7 ain't going to get you to the promised land. It's the 392 going up against that 5.0 that everybody wants to see. And say what you will about what car does better with boost and this car does better with nitrous and all that other rigmarole. It doesn't matter. You line both cars up on a drag radial and send them, and it's a driver's race, normally with the Mustang doing its best to reel that Mopar in on the big end. That's who they need to be marketing towards. And it drives me nuts whenever I see that. And I'm watching it, there's only like one or two shows I'm even half interested in with that. But when I see Powered by Dodge, old school Mopar stuff, and then only to not have any type of real support for the guys that are the modern Mopar guys, the ones that will be carrying this legacy moving forward. Because you got to remember, the guys that were around back then, the guys that were around with the Dusters, the Darts, the Chargers, the Challengers, the Belvederes, the Savoys, when those guys were around back then, say in their 20s, 30s, 40s, yeah, they're dropping dead right now. Those guys are in their 60s, 80s, 90s now. Okay, you can only live for so long, and that nostalgia can only last for so long. If they don't start injecting some Mopar performance parts or direct connection or whatever was there to drive the image and to drive the performance of the Mopar from an aftermarket standpoint, if they're not doing that now, they are going to miss this boat moving forward. And the aftermarket, by the way, is not going to be there to bail them out. They weren't before, and bet you that right now they're not going to do it again and moving forward in the future.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy is like you're talking about the sales numbers, which I was actually going to talk to you about. The Challenger is second right now as far as like Camaro coming in third, and it's crazy how many revisions the Camaro has made on that chassis, on that facelift, the body, the engine, in comparison to the Mopar. And I always thought that was insane. I'm like, the Camaro is still revising the car, you know, trying to like catch that appeal of everyone, the buyers, you know, and Mopar is just like, oh, we're happy sitting at second. And that always really ticked me off that they never wanted to, you know, make consistent changes like the Mustang. Like we went from a huge change from the SO97 chassis to the S550 from 2014 to 15, and then from 15 to 17 they changed the S550 again in the 18 and 19. And that's already
you can even say it was a driver change too, because they went from a solid rear axle to the IRS, which is completely different. You know, if you're a drag racer going in wanting to buy a car, I mean, it's not a huge difference, but it's more you want to buy an independent rear suspension car mainly for track racing, where you have a big benefit there.
But what's funny is that, you know, all these people are like, I'm buying the car to take corners, when in reality they don't even, you know, take the car to the freaking track, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like they probably took the car to the track once, they got scared, and they never wanted to go back again, you know? And they're like, oh, I love the car because, you know, it's about the track. But anyways, it just really ticked me off. It's always made me mad that, you know, Mopar has, I literally see it this way, that Mopar is too busy, you know, tending to the Hellcat, the Red Eye, and the Demon, that they're forgetting that the majority of people are buying the RT and the SRT and the Scat Pack. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, they are, and they have their Scat packages for the 5.7, but it doesn't go far enough. You know, you got to get past the 5.7, and it doesn't matter what you do to the 5.7, just shy of throwing a ton of boost at it. And I mean a significant amount of boost and other engine mods and things like that, taking the drag back cars out of it, you're not going to get to the 392 power level. And it's odd. I mean, it's basically akin to Mopar performance parts or direct connection, only servicing the small block cars and not doing anything for the big block cars. Doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, that just would never fly back in the day. But, you know, these are the times that we're living in now. And, you know, to be perfectly honest, where the Mustang falls in line in terms of overall sales numbers, that's always going to be like that. The Mustang has a more global appeal than the Challenger does, especially when you start getting into cost and platform size and everything else. But the cool thing is that Challenger is in second place, and where Mopar was always in third, now they're claiming that second place spot on the podium. What I would like to see something to keep that car in second place. And now we're talking about the Camaro. Camaro was really good at being in second place. It was the best, first, so to speak, of the group. But the modern Camaro, it's too many compromises. The big issue that I have with that car is that it doesn't have its own identity, so to speak. At least with me, it's not Mustang enough, and it's not muscle car enough. It's falling into that gray area. And in this world that we live in, gray area, that's quicksand. That's the worst place you want to be. You want to be one or the other. You can have chocolate and vanilla when it comes to Mopars, and it's in the middle. That's not something that's that appetizing for a lot of folks, and that's why you're seeing those sales slide. And again, I mean, when you look at the car just from the driver's point of view, that's a lot of areas compared to the Mustang. So and when I drove it, it just was not my cup of tea whatsoever.
Yeah, I got you. I understand. I also another question. At the performance shop you work at, you're using a Mustang dyno, right?
Correct.
So you are using a Mustang dyno. So what is the massive difference between the Mustang dyno and the dyno jets, the dynocoms, stuff like that?
Well, there's a few things. First of all, you have to say which dyno jet we're talking about. If it's an old dyno jet 248, which is an inertia style dyno, that uses a weighted drum. I believe it's a 640-pound drum, and the acceleration rate of that drum, the weight of the drum is a known constant. And the quicker you can accelerate that drum, the more power the vehicle is making, and that's what the software is based around. Whereas a Mustang dyno or any eddy current dyno, DynoJet makes some eddy current dynos as well. The difference is it is providing an electric load onto the drums themselves, and it is the rate that you are basically overcoming a load that generates a power number through the software that's in those systems. So basically, the difference is one is taking a constant inertia, which is just how hard it is to accelerate a solid drum, and the other is you're taking a drum that has an electrically applied load and you're generating watts, and that's basically where it's generating that power number from. Now, the difference between each dyno, there's proprietary algorithms that they use, and that's one of the reasons why you get different power numbers, even from two different manufacturers of eddy current dyno. You're going to get slightly different power numbers between the two. But typically, if you're running on an eddy current dyno, you're going to be within about 3 to 4% every single time, one to the next to the next.
And so, I guess tuning-wise, tuning on a Mustang dyno compared to a dyno jet or compared to any other variation of dyno, is that going to affect the tune? The same car, let's say you put a Mustang on a Mustang dyno, and then you take that same car, put it on a dyno jet, and you look at those files. Is that going to affect the tuning in any way?
It can, and let me tell you what happens. So let's take two Mustangs, and you put one of them on an eddy current dyno. It's going to be loaded at roughly 4,000 pounds of load to the rear wheels. Whereas on a dyno jet, like an inertia style, it will have a constant load of whatever the resistance is on that drum to generate that inertia. The Mustang dyno is not only going to replicate weight, but it's also going to replicate rolling resistance, and it's going to replicate wind resistance. So you're putting the car under a significant load on the Mustang dyno, and that is what will help you especially when you're tuning at wide open throttle or at tip-in conditions, which is another spot where a lot of people forget is a huge part of tuning. It's easy to tune wide open throttle, but tip-in drivability is a whole different story. But getting back to the point, that extra load is going to put the car under more stress. The pistons are going to have higher dwell time for any given speed that the wheels are turning, because you have to keep that thing under load for a longer period of time. or it's going to be under load for a longer period of time because of the load that's on it. And that's how you can start to see, okay, wait a minute, we're getting some knock retard here. Or, I'm starting to hear a little ping if the car didn't have knock sensors. Wait, I'm starting to hear a little bit of ping, and you can dial that back, where you wouldn't get that with an inertia-style dyno because it can't take into account weight, rolling resistance, or anything like that. So, yes, you can see an issue there, or have an issue if you're tuning on a dyno that doesn't replicate the road conditions as well. And we typically will overload the dyno a little bit. This thing I think is at 40. The Hellcats, I think we're loading them at 4,800 pounds when we're doing the tuning. So they're loaded pretty heavy on that dyno when we're doing any tuning whatsoever. And that's the only safe way to do it.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that too. The only safe way. So in a perfect world with no police, if you data log the car on the street, would that be the most ideal situation for tuning besides the dyno?
It can be. In fact, I would always prefer to do a street tune.
Okay.
For a couple of reasons. One, the hood is down. The hood's not up. The cold air intake thing doesn't come into play with that situation.
Correct.
It's under a true dynamic load, and it's in the same trim that it's going to have. Now, that being said, one of the problems is that it's more difficult to do a street tune when we're talking about really trying to spool the car up to a high mile per hour. If you're tuning a car that is going to see speeds over 150, 160 miles an hour, it's tough to do that on the street. Even if you take police completely out of the equation, you're going to have shutdown time involved with that. And then you're going to have, read the data log, and you have to get the car back up to speed. And it can just be more time consuming. Whereas on a dyno, you can make the pull, go over the data log, hit it again straight away. If you want to try to hot lap it, you can keep the temperatures more consistent in some cases. You can mitigate a lot of things better on the dyno. However, the dyno is a laboratory situation. It's not the real world, and all tunes have to be validated on the street in the real world. But for the heavier cars, especially the Mopars, you really want to have them on a eddy current dyno and loaded heavily, because these things are heavy, and that weight makes a huge difference in how you tune these vehicles.
So I'm going to take a massive guess. Your Hellcat's probably putting down around 570 on a Mustang dyno.
It's never been on a dyno.
Do you plan on putting it on the dyno, or?
Eventually, you know how it is, man. Cobbler's kids don't get these shoes, right?
Yeah.
It'll eventually get thrown on the dyno, mainly just out of curiosity. But I'll put it to you like this: the strongest Hellcats, the strongest Hellcat that I've ever seen on that dyno is actually a buddy of mine's car. Put down exactly 600 horsepower to the rear wheels. And that was on a cool down pass. Most of them on a cool down pass are doing really good to make 595.
Wow.
And that's just the way it is. This car, the way that it runs, is probably, it's a very strong example of a Hellcat. I do have to admit that. I'm not just saying that because it's in my garage. If it was a turd, I'd say it's a turd, and it's not. It's actually a very stout example of a Hellcat. I would say that it would probably be just the other side of 590. But I doubt very seriously it would be 600. It might be. But on a normal, back-to-back pass, you're right. It's somewhere around 570, 575 is what you can expect out of the Hellcats on a Mustang dyno.
What do you find to be the weak point of part of the Hellcat powertrain overall? Where do we start seeing rods getting thrown and stuff like that? I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, it broke up. I think I know. What I see. What's the weak point of the Hellcat? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, the weak point. Yeah.
The weak point of the Hellcat is typically the 200 pounds of dumb meat sits behind the steering wheel. That is the number one dumb part, and that's in the tuning aspect. Stock, the cars are incredibly robust. I've seen Hellcats go through a level of hell that would have marked pretty much any one of the other cars that we've worked on. But that being said, if there is a weak part, it'd be the diff. It honestly would be. And cars that are running deep into the nines with 309 gears. We've got cars that are running real deep into the nines with 262 gears, the stock gears. If you're foot braking them, they don't seem to have too big of an issue. Obviously, the drive shaft is, I mean, that goes without saying, but I'll just go ahead and say it anyway. That is the weak link, but it's also the engineered weak link in the system. So, but in terms of engine robustness, we've got stock block Hellcats that are, again, I mean, running deep into the 950s, 920s, all stock transmission, stock converter. There really isn't anything weak, again, except for that rear diff, and that can be a bit of a problem. And I'll go so far as to say this: it's surprising how robust these cars have been, considering some of the abuse that I've seen them take. Now, you know, it's not to say that they're bomb-proof, and they're certainly not foolproof. Just like any other Mopar, if you don't have a mastery in Mopar tuning, it's best to leave it to the professionals or learn from a professional that has paid their dues. And believe me when I tell you, you don't get into Mopars and get into Mopar tuning without cracking a few eggs. And that's just the way it goes. Or that's the way it went, I should say, initially. But if the car is in proper hands, I mean, it's as tough as they come.
Gotcha. I mean, moving away from the Hellcat, I know, like I said, on the phone call I had with you yesterday, I sincerely hope that the 2020 GT500 fails. I hope it crashes and burns, man, because I do not like the direction that they took that car. I feel embarrassed. Like I said, my whole issue stemmed from that stupid freaking little knob that they put on the car for the shifting gears. It was just dumb. It's like, this is not a Mercedes, man. I can't, like, express it enough, like how mad I am at that car, you know?
Yeah, well, look, there's a lot of people that are scratching their heads right now about that car. Look, let me tell you this. There are so many people that were looking forward to that car for multiple different reasons, myself included. I am on record as saying that one of my all-time favorite cars that I've ever driven, worked on, spent time around, whatever you want to call it, has been the GT500, and it's been that way since 2007. I have loved those cars for over a dozen years, and it blows my mind that they have decided to shake up the apple cart as much as they did by not offering a proper third pedal and by not offering a proper automatic. Look, the ZL1 seems to do just fine at the power level it's at with the 10-speed that is in that car. I am not familiar with any failures with that setup. Truth be told, I don't have a lot of experience with it, but the experience that I do have is that they'll take a beating. It's supposed to be a joint venture between GM and Ford with that transmission. So, what gives? But why isn't that transmission the GT500 for the guys who want to go out there and kick the living crap out of some Hellcats with their Ford? Could have easily been done. Where's my 6-speed manual? These cars only came with 6-speed manuals. That's the tradition of the car. You're going to tell me that now you're going to buck tradition, buck the wants and needs of the grassroots drag racer, and throw in some freaking Euro trash, clicky-clacky DSG transmission made by Tremec? We don't even know the durability of this thing yet. And I get it. They'll say it'll take the power all day long. Best believe there's going to be guys getting their hands on those GT500s, throwing a drag pack on it the second they get the thing home, taking it to the drag strip, and launching that thing like a bonsai. And I will guarantee you that the first thing that's going to go on that car is either going to be a half shaft or it's going to be the transmission. I hope it's a half shaft, because if that transmission blows up, you're screwed. And at that point, I think you're going to start seeing a lot of automatic swaps and a lot of TR6060 swaps in those cars.
You think people would go as far as to, like, throw a manual in it on their own? You know what I mean? Do you think they would?
I'll say this. I have a feeling there's going to be some people looking into seeing how they can do it the second that DSG decides to blow up on them.
I agree.
Because I have a feeling that transmission is going to be lots of coin. And TR6060s in the performance world basically fall out of trees. So I will go out on a limb and say that it won't be too long before somebody figures out how to put a third pedal in the car. Hell, it's not that big of a departure from the Mustang GT. I mean, all the parts are going to fit. All you got to do is just swap them over. And if you got to cut some holes in the floor pan or whatever you got to do, that ain't nothing. That's easy to do. That's cake work. So the rest of it is just plumbing stuff around, working around computers and getting your encryptions for tuning and all of that. All that'll come. I'm not worried about that. But I promise you, if I'm not saying it will, but if that transmission turns out to be made of glass, somebody is going to be first to market with that swap pretty quickly, I would guess.
I think from what I'm seeing right now, a lot of the 2013, 2014, even 10 and 11 GT500s, they're actually going the route of swapping out the manual transmission. I'm not too sure what is in the manual GT500, but they're going with the 6R80 right now. A lot of people are throwing that 6-speed automatic transmission in there right now. So I would honestly, if I saw the 10-speed automatic fail in the 2020 GT500, I feel like that they would go as far as to throw the older 6R80 in there. And I think that would be pretty embarrassing. I think that would be really embarrassing.
They would throw that, or they would throw in, like we were talking about, the manual transmission. It's like once you stop giving people options, it's not that hard for all these smart people, all these smart mechanics to put what the people want in their car. Exactly, and at the end of the day, they're spending 80 to we don't even know.
It's probably going to be
80 to 100 grand on the car.
Definitely going to be north of $85,000.
And you don't even have an option.
What do you think? 85K plus, right?
Well, so far as I've seen, 72 to 82, but you're not factoring in that obscene ad tag that you're going to have to all these cars.
Correct.
I already know that there's one dealership that's planning on throwing 25 grand on top of whatever the price is.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. But I feel like right now, if you are going to get a GT500, you have to go with like either the 11 through 14 or even the older 06 through like 09. Just because I feel like there's a big aftermarket for those. There's a lot of people who know how to tune those things well. And on top of that, there are so many options to get that car into the nines. With something as easy as a pulley, a pulley and a throttle body and some good tuning. You know what I mean?
Well, the good thing about that car is that it'll always be a GT500. This new thing, it's a GT500 only in name to me. I mean, the second you start trying to get creative with that type of a transmission, you're taking something away from that muscle car feel. I mean, let's get real. GT500, when that car was released in 07, that was the reintroduction of big block, big car to the American buying public. You had the Termies, the 0304 Cobras, but the GT500, and I get that it's heavier and all of that, but that doesn't matter. You've got now a car that harkens back to a big block powered, big block feel, so to speak. And that's what really got us kicked off. That was the catalyst for cars like the Hellcat, like the ZL1, the ZR1. That's really what helped to get that ball rolling. So without the manual transmission and without now the ability to have a true torque converter style automatic in the car, I am completely disinterested in that car from would I want to drive one? Would I want to spend time with one? What I want to do? No, because first of all, Ford's already proven, especially with their smaller DSG transmissions, the power shift, they've already figured out that they can't get that shit right to save their life. So I'm not going to be working with something that some calibration engineer can't get right from Ford. I'm waiting on them to basically abandon that idea and go with a true manual transmission from Ford at some point during its production run. But again, you're still screwing the guy that wants to go drag racing, and you're screwing the guy that just wants an automatic for whatever reason that he or she chooses. So there's that to consider. But yeah, no, as far as getting a number out of them, shit. You give me an 08 GT500, do a 6R80 swap, TVS blower, some tuning, long tubes. It's your garden variety 9-second GT500 combination that you can. Your great grandkids can be driving that thing around. They'll never have any problems with it just based on durability alone, given the upgrades you do to the trans anyway. Yeah. So, I don't know. It bums me out, but when I first heard about the GT500 being re-released, I was was just all aflutter. I mean, I was just salivating about this thing, foaming at the mouth, waiting to get the specs on this car. And
I think we all
talk
were.
about being let down.
Right. I think we all were. We kept seeing all these leaks coming out, horsepower, and then the guy said Venom
kills demons. What a clown.
And now that we're seeing more and more,
Yeah, and it's just and it also sucks that they decided to go with the 5.2 flat plane crank V8. It's like, what? I thought this was going to be the 5.8. I thought the 5.8 was going to come back, bigger blower, better internals, just a bunch of horsepower to throw down at the track, and it really, really, really disappointed. Just really disappointed. Let's be real. This car was supposed to come out at the beginning of this year. This car was meant to come out last year. Why do you think they're using the 2015 through 2017 body style? They've been working on this thing for a while, and they have messed up in so many ways. They have. I want to say they've postponed the release of this car 2 or 3 times already.
Well, there's that, and you've got to look at it like this, okay? That whole Venom kills demon debacle. Is that guy even still working for Ford? Here's the thing. I'm curious as to understand why they had all these problems with the actual releasing of the car. They paraded the thing out like Miss America at SEMA, and everybody's supposed to get all hot and bothered by this thing, and it basically flopped in a lot of ways. There's some guys who go, oh, the styling is fantastic, and anybody trying to rub up on any of the execs, sticking their nose so far up their ass, they can smell their dental work. They're basically, it was just like this echo chamber for Ford, and every yes person you could think of, every journo that was flown in to check it out was fawning over it. No horsepower number, no listing of weight, no performance numbers, only some vague smoke and mirrors, some BS to keep you somewhat interested. But the reality is that you were looking at a car that didn't exist yet. That was a concept only. Yeah, it might have driven, it might have been functional, but it ain't real. That's not the production car. And the funny thing too is you had the carbon version, and then you had the base model that was like out in the back of the lot or something like that. Look, here's the thing. No 5.8, they're going with a flat plane, which I'm real curious to see how they're going to deal with NVH on a positive displacement supercharger on a engine that is that size as a flat plane. Those things have secondary NVH issues already. Couple that with a supercharger sitting on top of it. I don't know how long that thing is going to deal with the harmonics. And I've actually heard that they were working on a flat plane, and they were having problems with it because of secondary NVH issues between the supercharger and the engine itself. That's one of the reasons why my understanding was that they were going to go to a conventional, basically cross plane or a 90-degree plane or 90-degree crank, as opposed to the cross plane, and do away with the secondary NVH characteristic and have something that is more durable and something that they already have. I mean, it wouldn't be anything to make the current Coyote a 5.2. It's got the 5.2 pistons in it, basically. So it's the same bore size. Making that thing a 5.2 is just a crankshaft away. Don't know why they wouldn't have gone that route. But anyway, you take that into account. And the fact that you've got the Hellcat, which is still, this thing runs mid-10s in good air. It'll run, tomorrow night, it'll probably run in 1070s or 1080s, whatever. It's a stock car. Red eye will do about a tenth or two quicker, depending on the trim that you've got. If it's a stripped-down red eye, it's a couple of tenths. A regular red eye is about a tenth, give or take. That means that you're talking about cars that will get eerily close to that 9-second number in a quarter mile. And Venom kills demon, Venom kills, gives you red ass eyeballs, whatever. Look, the fact is who the hell is going to take that thing to the drag strip knowing that they're going to get scalded by the one car they tried to benchmark it off of, which is now the baby brother to the latest car that the Mopar is parading in the red eye. Oh yeah, you want to bring up road course, closed circuit performance. Oh, it'll closed circuit. Who gives a shit? Ain't nobody taking that car to a closed circuit. It doesn't matter. And by the way, guys, there are plenty of guys running these cats around closed circuits that aren't having too much of a problem hanging with cars that they quote-unquote shouldn't be hanging with to begin with. So, yeah, let's save all the hype and let's save all the wishful thinking, and let's just talk about what is real. Ford figured out that the GT500 fell on deaf ears and mouths that were agape when they figured out that it wasn't the car that they thought they were going to get. And now the same guys that would have bought one, this bald guy included, is not going to be buying a GT500. I'm not doing it for the channel because I don't believe in the car's premise. I'll stick with what I like. I'll stick with the girl that brought me to the dance, at least in this case with my Hellcat, and I'll keep moving forward here. And if anybody has success and luck with a GT500, it can come at their expense, not at mine.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. I completely agree. I do not see that GT500 going 9 seconds. It's just not going to happen. Right now, like I said, we're about 4 months away from the release of the car. Still no horsepower numbers. Still no quarter mile time. You know, and they're saying it's going to be under 11 seconds. Who cares at that point? This is nothing new. This is nothing new. The Hellcat has been under 11 seconds since 2015.
It's too big of a risk to gamble on the new GT500.
Yeah, it's way too big. That's why I said earlier. I hope that car crashes and burns, and they do a complete revision for later on. Just give us the 5.8. I want the 5.8 back. I was hoping the 5.8 would come back. I do not care. I don't mind my language. Mind my language. Go ahead.
How about this? Give us the car that we were asking for first of all. That's what I'm thinking here. Now I want the car that I thought that I was going to be getting. I want the car that was implied to me, so to speak. And how is it that we're 4 months out with no teaser videos? We don't have any quarter mile times, like you say. We don't have any information on this car whatsoever. And why did they parade this thing out at SEMA, show everybody this car, only to bring it back, work it back into the shadows? What are we waiting on? I mean, seriously. And here's the other thing you got to remember. We're coming up on the C8 release. That thing goes on sale in July. So, not this, I think it's next July.
Yeah, next July. Yeah.
And when that car is released, that car is going to be getting a lot more fanfare than that GT500. And Chevy's not giving out anything on the car. They're still developing and twerking and tweaking and doing whatever they got to do the thing to get it ready to be released. They're not going out trying to garner up any kind of interest in the car by parading what it amounts to a look at my new GT500 that we don't really have yet, and it's got the stupid little twisty gear shifter knob thingy on it. And all this other crap. Seriously? I mean, you're going to bring that to the table? Corvette's got a mid-engine car that they're about to release. Mopar has got the red eye that you can get in just about every configuration known to the cargo, either wide body, narrow body, lightweight, automatic, true automatic, by the way, and a tried and true one at that. TR6060 manual transmission, you can choose that route. You can basically make whatever sandwich you want out of that car, and you're going to tell me that, and it's still an expensive car, but it's not outside of the range of what people can afford. You're going to tell me that you're going to release a Mustang that costs more money, or potentially more money, certainly more with that stupid add tag you're going to throw on it. And, you can't do anything with the car. You can't. It's only one transmission, one engine combination. It's an embarrassment.
Yeah, I think it's funny because, you have Corvette not saying anything about their new C8. Everyone's getting hyped about it. Everyone's been talking about that car. But then guess what? Freaking Ford brings out their GT500 and they're like, look at the carbon fiber wheels. Who gives a shit about the carbon fiber wheels? You know what I'm talking about? It's just so ridiculous. I want numbers. That's it. I just want numbers.
They make it such a big deal just only because no other car has them except for the Ford GT.
Does the ZL1 has an option for the carbon fiber wheels too, don't they? I don't know. I'm not too sure.
The GT350.
Oh, the 350R does. Okay, the
Yes.
350R does. Yeah, but who cares about the carbon fiber wheels? Who cares about the carbon fiber freaking wing? You know? Where's the horsepower? Where's the freaking performance numbers?
So let me understand this correctly. So it has carbon fiber wheels, which freaks me out because how much does one of those carbon fiber wheels cost if I accidentally wrap
Well,
it?
the funny thing is,
you're
all four of the carbon fiber wheels, this is how much they cost. All four of the GT500 carbon fiber wheels cost $20,000.
Okay, that's suicide right
It's
there.
suicide. Exactly. It's hilarious. It's like, I don't care about these stupid wheels. I want that 5.8 in there. I'm serious. I just wanted the 5.8.
See, it's crazy how now we're talking about carbon fiber wheels and all this stuff, and you're spending so much money if you wreck the vehicle. This is like if we're talking about a Lamborghini or something. This is a muscle car. This is supposed to be something you can go out, pick up. You know, you might hurt the bank a little bit, but you're good to go to the strip. You're good to go.
Get a hamburger right after.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like it's supposed to be a cruiser car. You know, take the family out in it. You know, be able to rip some gears too. You know, but it's just it's completely insane, and I think it's just Ford trying to break into that European market. They were trying to break into the European market with the S550. Yeah. I think they were a little successful with that body style. It wasn't too bad. But now with the GT350, you know, they're like, we're focusing on track in this car. So why then? I just don't get why they went the route of having a GT500 that was track-oriented and a 350 that was track-oriented when it could have just been 350s for the track, 500s for the drag strip. You know? Like,
How about this? How about when you consider this? First of all, I want to circle back and talk about those rims. If those rims were $20,000, I want you to think about that number for a second.
That's a fact. No, that is a fact, by the way. That is a fact.
Okay, so think about that in relation to the cost of the car. Okay, so you're telling me, you being Ford, that if that car costs $80,000, 25% of the cost of that car is in rims? Shit me? Seriously? I mean, come on. I mean, damn, just give me the thing for $60,000 and I'll throw my own rims on it.
Exactly, yeah. Not even that. I'll go buy a 2014 GT500 used for $38,000 and get that thing into 1,000 horsepower within $8,000 of mods. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's asinine. Just really is asinine. I think it's just crazy. It's like we're in clown world. I'm not joking. It's like we're in clown world. I was so hyped for this 500. I was talking about it for years. Remember, Ryan, we were talking about it. We were like, dude, the 350's out. Like, they got to bring something out with the 500. Like, the 500 is going to...
I was saying you have to bring something out for the people who want to drag. You know, not everybody likes to track, you know. Mm-hmm. And they have to accommodate for those types of people. And even at that, I mean.
Well, I was fine. I'm okay with, you know, the people who want to go to the track. That's fine. But, like, you know, the 14 GT500 set the standard as far as horsepower. 662 horsepower. Everyone was like, wow, incredible, right? Awesome. Hellcat comes out. 707 sets the standard for everybody. Everyone's like, okay, what's next? I was hoping with the new GT500 they would go 750. 800. I was hoping 800, to be honest. I was like, man, this next GT500 is going to put freaking trains on the Hellcat. It's going to gap ties it. It's going to take that Hellcat to Gapplebee's. And, and it's nothing near that, and it's insane.
But that's the funny thing is that when you start saying, oh, well, this car is more for the closed circuit track. Handling is its forte. Are you kidding me? Handling? Really? You're going to start bringing up handling into this conversation? What about the GT350? I thought that was that car's bag. Now you're going to bring the GT500. It can't handle better than the GT350. So how are you going to say that it's a handling car?
Yeah.
It's got a Roots supercharger hanging out in front of it. That butchers your handling. Look, the whole thing about the ZL1 is that it's very well balanced, but the Camaro, that Alpha platform, the engine sits far back. It's not like that with the Mustang, first of all. Second of all, again, I have to question the logic behind bringing the GT500 out. Number one, while you still have the GT350 sitting in dealer lots right now collecting dust, they're not selling like you would think because dealers are still throwing added tags on top of those cars. But still, taking all that out of the equation, that is a great car in general. I love the GT350, but it has its place. So does the Hellcat. But here, if you want a car that handles well, this is the other point the point that I'm getting to. In what circuit or in what environment is this car better? And how am I going to be sold on the idea that it's better than buying a GT350 if I'm doing regular track day events? I don't mean like once every couple of years. I'm talking about the guy that takes the car to the road course regularly that does have driving experience. I used to love doing road course events, autocross events, and it's just basically because of time. I just don't have the time to do it as much anymore. Drag racing is a lot more convenient. But if I had it my way, I would be back at Motorsports Ranch or at Thunder Hill in NorCal, where I was living at the time. I would be running not a GT500. I'd be running a C6 Corvette, a C5 Corvette, an F-body, hell, a Miata. I'd be running something that is a handling car, that is a known racing platform. Not something with a DSG transmission that may or may not be able to handle the rigors of an actual track day. And, oh yeah, don't forget about the fact that it's heavy too. That thing is not going to be a lightweight. It's not that far away from the Hellcat in terms of total overall weight if you look at what you're getting, at least in the base package. Now you get the carbon fiber package. Okay, whatever, all bets are off. But for 20 grand for wheels, it better be lightweight. That thing better cover.
You know what I mean? Like they're saying, oh, GT350 is for the track, and then they're catering with the GT500 for the track. It's like you literally just screwed over all the people who just spent $75,000 on the 350, 350R, and then you're gonna come out with the 500 saying it's doing the same thing but better. It's funny because the 350 came out, right, and then 2 years later, the 2018 Mustang GT comes out. I've heard,
Yes.
I've heard. I don't know if this is true. I've heard that the 18 GT is handling just as good as the 350. I've heard, and I've also seen 18 GTs run better drag times than the 350. So I think it's crazy. It's crazy. It's like they're completely screwing over like the people who are buying these cars. You know, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, and that's the funny thing. So it's funny you mentioned that. The GT350, so I had a close friend of mine that had one, and I got to drive the car quite a bit. That car, it was as though the car was tailor-made for me from an ergonomic standpoint. However, the power in the car, the power delivery, that car was only fun when you were doing things that are very illegal on most highways. And there was no real redeeming quality to the car. You take the car to the drag strip, and it will get boat raced by any 18 and up GT with an automatic transmission. I mean, it will just. It's in fact, it's like it's not even a fair fight. It's not even a fair race to put a GT350 up against a Mustang GT with an A10. Now you're talking about the GT500. And the GT500 is going to have the biggest target on its back for every Mustang owner. Don't even count the Mopars or the Chevy guys or whatever other brand you can dream up. It will have so much cannibalism taking place against it by guys with tuned NA Mustangs, as well as the guys that are running Pro Chargers or a VMP Supercharger with their 2018, 2015, for whatever. And cars, and that's just cars that are on low boost. Guys who spent the money for the blower want to have a fun car that runs, 1050s, 1070s. Low boost, fun car. Something you can enjoy every day of the week. They will be out there sniping GT500s left and right. I know I would be. I mean, are you kidding me? And every GT500 owner is going to have to tuck their tail between their legs and take that ass whipping as best they can.
Right. So you're buying pretty much after the markup. After the markup, you're buying a $100,000 car, and you can go out and buy yourself an 18 or 19 for more than half of that. Put a supercharger on it, and then beat that car. That's what it blows my mind. That's
it's crazy. It's crazy. And, but like the thing that I can't stress enough though is the fact that with this 500, the GT500, they are literally screwing over every single person who bought a 350.
Yep.
And every single aspect, they are just saying, hey, Awesome, you bought the 2018 350. Awesome, you bought the 2019 350. But the 500 is going to be better, you know? And it's just, it's insane to me. It's insane.
Here's what pisses me so much about the whole situation, and this is something I've been saying for a while, is that marketing dropped the ball on this GT500 deal. Look at it from a historical standpoint. Take this back to the original GT500. That car handled worse than pretty much every car on the road. That car was a long-distance GT car and drag race car. It was never a handling car. Fast forward to 2007, GT500, street brawler, badass, big block style power, big car, looked the part, acted the part, couldn't mess with it, couldn't fuck with it at all on the street, especially if the thing was on a drag pack and it had a seasoned driver in it. Then that car goes away in 14, and look what you're left with when the thing gets reintroduced. Now, granted, I get it. They're not drag race cars per se. They're tough to launch. And yes, I get it. In even fairly well massaged form at the drag strip, the GT500 is not that much of a threat. But that's not where that car shines. That car shines at putting smiles that stretch from one ear to the next on your face while you're playing with it on the street. And nothing will pin you in the back the way that a GT500 will when it eventually hooks up somewhere in third gear, if it does. That's what that car is meant for. It is meant to be a flagship badass. And this thing is not. It is, you know, that French guy from Ricky Bobby. That's what this GT500 is to me.
Oh, could not agree with you more.
Ricky Bobby.
You know, yeah, it'll kick ass in some certain ways, but God, it just doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
You know, you can't French kiss a man with a beard and not call yourself GT500 after that.
I like that one. I'm gonna use that one.
They should make a meme about that.
Yeah. We already have good memes about Alex Flores. Oh, we're gonna ask you about Lund Tuning and Alex. So what's your personal opinion?
Love them. I mean, Lund, Alex, those guys are awesome. They know what they're doing. They're around this stuff every day. You know, the results speak for themselves in that respect. So, you know, when it comes to Fords, especially, you know, the Ford. One good thing about Fords is that they are a lot more consistent than the Mopars. I've said it over and over and over again. Mopars, they're their own individual snowflakes, man. When it comes to tuning, it's funny how, and it's even more so important. Mopar on a Mustang dyno, loaded dyno, and have just trust me on this. It's just the weirdest thing. No two are alike. And so, but the Mustangs or the Fords in general are a lot more consistent, and those guys have got those cars figured out, and they do a great job with what they do. So yeah, I could never imagine having any second thoughts about using any of their knowledge and any of their expertise on any Ford that I can.
Yeah, I got you. What about, so as far as your channel and everything that you're doing right now, I think, how much have you grown in the past year? I haven't really looked at the subscribers. Have you gained a few thousand or so maybe?
This year, yeah, probably a few thousand. I would say close to that.
Are you looking to go a different route with like maybe doing more vlogs at the track, or are you just gonna do the same stuff you've always been doing, like thoughts on certain cars and stuff like that? Because right now, I think you're doing a great job with the streams and all the time. I tune in as much as possible, but I also really, really, really like the videos that you do where you're just sitting like you are right now, just talking about cars you've liked in the past, issues with cars that are coming out today, just everything in general. Like, are you looking to do more of that content, or are you gonna go a different route?
No, I am going to be doing more of that content. As a matter of fact, I'm going to keep the format the same, and the whole premise behind the format is just like me and you hanging out in the garage talking cars. I never really wanted to get too deep into all the editing and all the rest of that stuff. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy that and I think it's great. But for my channel, it's going to stay the same format. But the older style videos will be coming out. Issues with either my thoughts on the cars and either my issues, either the things that I like about it or generally disagree with those cars. Some older car stuff that I'll be chatting about, as well as, keeping up with general trends and things like that in the automotive industry. That's mainly what I'm going to be doing, as well as, the same ride-along videos and, taking you guys on the journey with this contraption sitting behind me. So
Gotcha. What about did you ever take a look at the LS versus Coyote shootout videos?
I've seen those. Yeah, in fact, what's funny about that is that the one that got the most popularity was there was a $10,000 build, LS versus Coyote shootout, and that was something that it was kind of hard to watch in a way because it was kind of, in my opinion at least, a little bit LS biased. I think they could have done more with the Coyote, but I have seen them, and I'm aware of what they're able to get out of them.
Yeah, I thought it was really laughable how they gave forged internals on the Coyote, but they decided to go with the smaller supercharger and then gave the LS the bigger supercharger. It didn't make any sense to me. It didn't seem like a very reasonable or fair comparison. As far as like the LS and the LT though, what are the capabilities of the LT1? Like how is that thing running under boost? How are the heads? How is the airflow, the intake, stuff like that?
So the LT is actually really good. Internally, it's stout. As far as head flow goes, they're better than the LS3 heads. I want to say that they're flowing like right at 310, if I'm not mistaken. 310, 320-ish. Definitely a good set of heads. They're overbuilt engines. I will say that the LT is. But the downside is that it's direct injection. Some people will say, well, that's a good thing, and in some cases it is. It makes tuning a little bit easier. It's a little bit softer, I guess you can say, when it comes to knock. But let's be honest, there ain't no secrets when it comes to the LS engines. And if I were, let me put it like this, the LT will never be the darling of aftermarket swaps that the LS has been. It can't be. Because when you look at the sophistication that goes into the LT versus, well, the anvil simplicity of an LS, the guys are going to go with the LS every single time because it's just a turbo away from making 700 to the rear wheels. And with the right internals, it will do that for a long, long time. Now, don't let anybody fool you. You go putting a lot of boost on an LS and you'll throw rods around all over the place. You may even start to run into some oiling issues. But the reality is that for a lot of those guys, those engines seem to last just long enough to garner a little bit of success with them before they blow up. So, the myth of the bomb-proof LS with boost and that 1,000 horsepower number, it can start to smell a little bit like sour milk after, about 15 passes when the thing actually starts to eat itself alive. So, some guys will argue at that point, but what I've seen in real life at the track is dictated something fairly close to that. The guys that build them right, those things will last forever. But the LT, in terms of outright power, is stout. I mean, look at it like this. It is not at all uncommon for me to see in a LT1 car, LT1 Camaros, running the 8-speed automatic with different gearing, a cam, long tube headers, and an intake running in the high 10s in good air with a drag pad. I see them all the time, or at least I see 5 or 6 cars that are doing that all the time, and they're pretty sedate combinations. But that is about its only real claim to fame right now, is that it's able to do that. And the problem with that, as impressive as all that sounds, and of course they'll say, well, get your 392 car to run 1080s with a cam and whatever, and I go, we're about 2/10 off of you, but so don't start wagging your tail too much there, Sparky. You're on your ass basically like duck on June bug. So don't really think you got that much on a 392. And that's just a weight issue, by the way. But the big thing is that nobody cares because we live in an era right now where 10s are the new 12s. And if your car runs 1080s and that's your maximum effort, nobody's going to even notice it. The only person that's going to care about it is whoever's cutting the check. And and they're going to get sick of cutting checks after a while. So I don't know. I don't know how I got to that point, but here we are.
No, you're good. You're good. I was gonna ask also another thing. How often do you see 392 swaps? Engine
I'm
swaps.
sorry, do I see what now?
How often are you seeing 392 engine swaps?
Actually, you see them quite a bit in resto funds. You'll see them in Challengers. You'll see them in a lot of E-body Mopars, Darts, Challengers. You'll see them in some B-bodies and the Chargers. The one you see the most of, though, is the 6.1. The 6.1 with the nag one is a very popular choice because it's simple. It's Mopar's LS basically, and good flowing set of heads, decent enough intake manifold. Throw a cam in it, long tubes, 2 3/4 inch exhaust with an H pipe. Pick your muffler, and you've got an engine that's going to make about 475 horsepower, 500 horsepower at the flywheel, and with a nag one behind it. The wiring harness is pretty simple to throw all that stuff together. You put a tune on it with a 390 gear, a 373 gear, and you got a car that's real reliable. That will, it's a mid to low 11-second car on a time, and because they're lightweight, they weigh about anywhere between 600 and 1,000 pounds less than a normal Challenger does. So, it's pretty easy to see why that combination is so popular, but. You see a lot of them in those, the repower or, the resto line.
Okay. Yeah, you've never seen it outside of a Mopar though, right? Because I've never seen it either. I was trying to look into.
I take it back. I've seen it only one time, and it was in a 32 Ford.
Okay.
They did a 392 with a 727 backing up the 392 and a 32 Ford.
Oh wow! Yeah, I was always saying like, man, I would just wish this 392 was just in a lighter chassis, a lighter car, because that thing would destroy. Yeah. It would absolutely destroy. Having an 8-speed auto with that 392 and like let's say an old S197 Mustang body, good riddance. Like good riddance to the competition. I don't see other cars beating. I think that would be a mid 11-second car, mid low 11-second car to be honest.
No, listen, you put that in an A body like a Dart. You do the 392 swap in a Dart, and that with a 727 and a 2,500 RPM stall, 2,200 RPM stall, somewhere in that neighborhood, with a 373 gear, 370 gear, 390 gear. That's a 10-second car. So it's just based off of the fact that there's no weight to it. I will say this, a lot of folks will say, well, what are the cars that I wish I never saw leave the shop? And when I was at the shop full time, I did all the data logging on the initial delivery of the car, and I was usually the last person to drive the car. After Mr. Pipes got through working his magic, I was his, and still am to some respect, his second set of ears and eyes on the car, testing for drivability. But there's one car, actually two cars, that I actually kind of was bummed out about. It was the first one is a 62 D100 that TTS had built. It's a shop here locally in Houston, and they did a 4-link 6.1 and a nag one out of a Charger, and had a 390 rear gear, and I fell in love with that truck. That thing, when we were done with it, was super responsive. The truck didn't weigh anything. I think the truck might have weighed 3,400 pounds, 3,300 pounds at the most. Unbelievably responsive. It ran like a Hellcat. That thing was a nasty little truck, at least for the first couple of years. That thing was a ride. But that's again, the rest of my cars, that's one of the few that I've actually experienced and driven myself. And when I'm doing the load testing, I've got to run the thing wide open for a certain amount of time while I'm data logging the thing. And I'm looking at the data log, and I might as well be wearing a white lab coat. Actually, collecting data isn't that much fun. It sounds great, but it's all numbers and you're focusing on your job at that point. But when you get done, you can go, damn, that was a lot of fun. That truck was a lot of fun.
Sounds great, man. You have any more questions, Ryan?
I think I'm
Think you're good?
I'm good for this one.
Yeah.
Right here.
Well, Mr. Mason, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, man. I really appreciate it. We got to do it another time. Better prep for this one.
We apologize. Couldn't get the camera to work. We're gonna go ahead and do some testing. More testing to see why this happened. But we really appreciate you coming on. Hopefully, we can have you on in the future. It was fun for both of us.
Yeah, we really, really appreciate it, man. You offer a lot of knowledge to the community. I mean, you're killing it as far as the Mopar stuff, man. I think it was funny that a lot of the time we were ranting about the GT500, but I still think it's great, man. I think we know you like the Fords, the Chevys, the Mopar. We just want to see some fast cars. That's it. We don't want to see we don't want to see no $20,000 rims. We want to see some good numbers, good horsepower, and just a lot of fun. So again, man, we really, really appreciate you coming on.
You bet, guys. Well, thank y'all very much. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to the next one.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Take
you.
it easy. Have a great night, sir. Thank you.
Y'all too. Thanks, man.
Bye-bye.